All right, and welcome to Hat-Trick Sports Talk, our Friday show for the week. As always, I am joined by Brandon and Shane. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, doing well. How about you? How about you twos?
Doing good. Brandon, you good?
Pretty good.
All right, let's get started with, as we always do, with Thursday Night Football. The Dolphins absolutely obliterated the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brandon, I'll start with you. What is your reaction to the Dolphins blowout win yesterday?
Um, I think I can officially say that the Jacksonville Jaguars are a one-dimensional team. They seriously need DJ Chark. When they don't have him, they have nothing. Um, Also appears that offensive line is pretty trash
No, they've been
because
Yeah.
terrible all year.
Gardner Minshew last night, whoo boy, um, he was just getting rushed and throwing bad passes.
Mhm.
So
We're talking about that one specific one when Connolly was wide open. Noah Igbenogany, their first round rookie, got baited on a pump fake by Gardner, and Gardner didn't set his feet and completely overthrew what was an easy touchdown that could have changed the whole uh, complexion of the game. But on the other side with Miami, Ryan Fitzpatrick was really good yesterday. Shane, what are your thoughts on Miami now and moving forward after a good win?
Yeah, I think I think Miami is like 2, 3 years away from being a playoff team. Not like a 13-3, but like a wild card or whatever. Because they're a very young team, except for Fitzmagic, of course. But of course, he's not he's not the permanent guy. He's just kind of there as a bridge for now. Um, which is not anything against him. He looks great. He looked really good last night, and I think they started 0-2. It was a bit rough for them at first, but I think they just kind of needed to. I think they needed a game like this to win it in style, win it easily, and kind of get their confidence back up. And just because they have, there's a lot of new still in that team. Of course, with Miles Gaskin being kind of the starter now,
Mhm.
and he's done quite well, which I don't think anyone was really expecting. And in addition, you got guys like Devontae Parker, who has been a stud, and maybe it's because the Jags' offensive line is terrible, but their pass rush looked great last night. So, um, that's something. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't think that. I think until they get a franchise guy in there, whether it's Tua or somebody else, I don't know who.
It'd probably
Um,
be 2-0, right? So,
yeah. Well, I was just thinking, unless he unless he ends up playing and he isn't good or whatever,
mhm.
Um, but that would be the most likely at this point is Tua. I think once they get their franchise guy, whoever it is, once they get him in there for a year, and then they can kind of mesh some things, have a couple good drafts, and fill in some pieces on defense, and then maybe get some good free agents. I think this team could be pretty good.
Now, this may be an unfair question to ask, and I'll go to both of you for this. Going back to the Jags and Gardner, um, it seems to me that every week I always flip on if he's a franchise quarterback or not. Now, obviously, I still think it's a little bit early in week 3. Does Gardner look like a bridge quarterback to you guys, or do you think he's a franchise guy moving forward? I know it's a tough question this early in the year, but what are your guys' thoughts on that?
so so I'll go first. I would argue that Gardner Minshew, I believe he is a franchise quarterback, right? The reason being is this was the first game I've seen him play in his young career in the NFL where he looked truly like out of it, you know? Every game he's played, he's looked fairly good. He's been an offensive machine. I believe they said last night that was his first NFL interception. No, not his first interception. He had one. No, he had two last week. But the man doesn't throw interceptions that much. And I would argue last night it wasn't his fault that he wasn't looking that great. It was more he had no time. And however, it did kind of make me think about how that highlighted the difference between high caliber quarterbacks who are starters and decent quarterbacks who are starters. And by that I mean I'm talking about players like Russell, I'm talking about players like Drew Brees or Peyton Manning or like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. The people who like have the ability to keep the poise when they're in a rough situation. So I don't know. I think he's a starting I think he's a franchise quarterback, but at the same time, it's not like Jacksonville is going to have that many options coming their way. So
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if he was on a team that was better and that had not necessarily more weapons, but just, I mean, somewhere where, like Brandon said, where the pass rush just didn't get to him all the time. And he had time to sit in the pocket and make throws. I think he could be a franchise guy. Not like a Patrick Mahomes or a Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, but like a mid-tier franchise guy with development in the right system. Because I mean, you look at this guy last year, right? I mean, I certainly was not expecting him to be a starter or to even touch the football in the NFL coming out of Washington State. I mean, yeah, I figured he would be, like a 6th, 7th round draft pick, which he was. But then, it just so happened to be that he ended up starting for 13, 14 games last year.
I believe it was 13. Yeah, I was injured for a period, yes.
Yeah, and he had he had 26 touchdowns, it's like 3,300 yards, pass rating of about 90, 91, if I remember correctly, which, for a guy like that who is coming from a Pac-12 school and then going to, especially a Pac-12 school that never has successful NFL quarterbacks.
Drew Bledsoe's the only major one other than.
You're right. Well, that didn't last long. But anyways, but yeah, so I mean, he's coming from a Pac-12 school. He's not expected to be big in the NFL. And then here he is starting kind of unexpectedly. And then he takes a terrible team and puts them some pretty good numbers with it. So, I think I don't know if I don't really think that they're tanking for Lawrence because it seems like they're actually trying to win. So who knows where he'll end up, but I mean, if they end up with the number 1 overall pick, they might go for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just stuck with Gardner Minshew for now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's definitely options on the line on both sides for them. On the offensive line, there's definitely some options in the draft as well, especially early on that they could go for. They could go for another receiver. This is a pretty deep receiver class as well.
That's what I would do, I think.
Yeah. I really like their receivers still. I mean, they picked up Laviska Shenault. He's been a bit of a gadget guy in recent weeks. I'm sure he's going to find a breakout at some point. I do like their receiving core. It was just weird to see that with Chark not being there. It was kind of a mess.
Yeah.
And then our fantasy star MVP for the week is on the losing side, James Robinson, 30.9 points. He's a guy who's been really productive. He was kind of the only bright spot for the Jags last night with 30.9 points. And someone who is definitely going to be an RB2 with RB1 upside in some matchups, but he's going to be a solid RB2 the rest of the year. So if he's on your waiver wire, go pick him up. And then
the thing about James Robinson, honestly, is like if you look at the situation last night, I mean, he benefited from situation. Those were near touchdowns. Like they were both in situations where they gave Minshew the chance to throw the ball 3 times, couldn't connect, and then they just gave the ball to Robinson and he got it done. As a fantasy owner of Minshew, it was infuriating.
Yeah. Yep. James Robinson I believe he's running back 14 over the first 3 weeks. Definitely really productive. Speaking of fantasy, we have some trades to announce in our fantasy league. So right now, updating our fantasy league, David, me, Shane, and Mason are all 4 of us at 2-0 2 weeks in. But I did want to talk about some of the trades that were made. I made 2 trades on Wednesday. The first trade that I made is I sent our guy Jackson, Russell Gage, and Ryan Tannehill for Jared Goff and AJ Green. Your guys' analysis on that trade?
Wow. Interesting. Wait. So you had.
Yeah.
So you had Goff. Oh, no.
No, I had
Goff.
He had Goff, and I traded him Tannehill.
Oh.
And I got back AJ Green. Now, keep in mind with Jackson's team, his quarterback last week was Kirk Cousins, who had minus 1.2. And so I have Kyler, so that was kind of my thought. You're really interested by this trade, Shane. What are your thoughts?
Well, he kind of screwed you, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like,
you gave up
AJ Green for Russell Gage. That's a.
Well, I got AJ Green in the deal. So, I mean, if you're looking at this from my perspective, I have Kyler. I don't need Tannehill. And I would rather have depth at a position that I can use. That would be AJ Green. If you look at his target share has been incredibly high. I think it's about 30%. And we saw.
Oh wait, no, sorry, I had the trade backwards. No,
Yeah.
Jackson got screwed.
Yeah, in a way. Well, I don't know.
I don't think he got screwed. I don't think he got screwed.
Look at it this way. Like, it's basically one guy gets a better quarterback.
Gets a top 10 quarterback.
Which he needs.
Mm-hmm.
And in return, Robert gets a better wide receiver. So, I mean, we'll see in the end whether it was. I mean,
I just hope losing AJ Green doesn't affect Jackson.
I mean, personally, I would have just gone the route of streaming a quarterback off the waiver wire instead of giving up a wide receiver like AJ Green. But, yeah.
I mean, I think getting a top 10 quarterback for AJ Green is pretty good value, especially I think he's pretty comfortable with his receivers. He has Robert Woods. He has a couple other stud receivers. He's pretty comfortable at that spot. So I think losing AJ Green isn't too bad of a price to pay.
And then there's the deal that we made, Robert. I So I sent Le'Veon Bell and Amari Cooper because for some reason Robert wanted to take Le'Veon off my hands. And then in return, I received James Conner and Jarvis Landry. Now for some context here, I really needed a second running back because I got real screwed so far this season. Marlon Mack, who was going to be my replacement, got hurt in game 2, and I'm pretty certain my current running back 2 is not going to do very
You have Rojo,
well.
so
Yeah, I feel like Fournette's about to steal his job. And I'm like kind of swimming in wide receiver talent right now. So, yeah. I was a little. It hurt me a little bit to part ways with Mari Cooper after he had such a great week last week, but I don't know, man. In a way, it's kind of he's a little bit of a trust exercise because he didn't have a great week 1, and I have no idea how well that offense is going to play throughout the season. But I think it was a fair deal.
It's a fair deal for sure. I think you both gained something and you both lost something.
Yeah.
Robert, I think James Conner, at least for right now while he's healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fingers crossed.
Saying the same thing.
I think that's probably a substantial loss for you considering McCaffrey is your RB1 and he's out for a few weeks. However, Amari Cooper is going to be much more productive than Jarvis Landry because Baker. But now, if James Conner is healthy, he's looking great.
Yeah.
And he's obviously going to get more points than Le'Veon. So that's good for you, Brennan.
Yeah. Also,
but you lose a lot of receiver production. But who do you have at receiver?
I have. Let me just tell you all the receivers I have.
Okay.
So I just picked up Corey Davis.
Okay.
And I have CeeDee Lamb.
All right.
Who has apparently bumped up to like the second option for the Cowboys. And then also I have Deshaun Jackson, Jarvis Landry now, Preston Williams, who last night who played pretty well, Brandon Cooks, DJ Chark.
And Golden
Tate, who whatever.
Yeah, you're good.
And so honestly, once DJ Chark is healthy again, yeah, I'm not gonna have any troubles there. I was joking with Robert, like when everybody's wide receivers start getting hurt, everybody's gonna be coming to me to get a wide receiver replacement.
Well, in Jarvis Landry, I mean, he will be the more productive receiver in Cleveland, so
yeah,
yeah, I think Brandon will win that trade in the end, but I think Robert will win that first one.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of obvious in the trade that Robert wasn't like he was coming to me he wanted Amari Cooper.
To be completely honest, Connor and Landry were on the trade block. I was trying to move them aggressively because I love my running backs right now. I got really lucky off the waiver wire, picking up James Robinson, picking up David Montgomery. I'm really comfortable with them. And I picked up Joshua Kelly, who I'm thinking I'm probably going to flex this week. I feel really comfortable about the running back position. I felt like I needed an upgrade at receiver, and that's why the A.J. Green trade makes sense. That's why Amari Cooper made sense. I'm worried about Connor's injury a little bit, although I think that it's probably over now to some extent, where I think Brandon's going to get good production out of him. As for Jarvis, Browns right now are more run-based offense, but as you said, Shane, Jarvis is definitely going to be more productive throughout the rest of the year. So definitely, I think it's a pretty even trade on both sides.
I mean, knowing my luck this season, Connor will like blow his ACL next week, and
I hope not. I don't want to see. I don't want to see more injuries, man. I don't want to see
God.
more injuries.
I mean, I had him last year, and he was great up until week 6, and then
I hope
And
not, man. I don't want to
then
see any
kaboom.
more injuries.
bunch of shenanigans.
And then Shane as well. What's been your perspective on your team so far, going 2-0?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just that, starting the right guys, and there's only been a couple of times when I was like, dang it, I should have started this person or that person or whatever. You know, the one position that I was kind of worried about was running back, because my two starters were Chris Carson and Raheem Mostert, because they were the best available one I picked. So, but they, other than the injury, obviously, they have been pretty good. I mean, they've gotten me 20 to 30 points per game. So, that's working out all right. And then, everyone else. I mean, I have Dak Prescott and Josh Allen. So, I have two pretty consistent, reliable starter caliber quarterbacks, and Michael Thomas whenever he's healthy, Allen. So and the Patriots defense has been pretty good, other than the Seahawks game. But
Your
Russell was cooking, so
your receiving core is really fun with Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, of course, with Herbert starting, is going to be more productive. Diggs has been a surprise. How him and Josh Allen have produced so far has been really impressive.
I don't know why that's so surprising to people, because I mean, Allen is in my opinion, a much better quarterback than Kirk Cousins, and Diggs was already really good. So it's like, well, put 2 and 2 together.
I think the more interesting thing with the Bills in terms of the Allen-Diggs connection is the fact that Allen throws the ball deep. Diggs is a guy who just loves the deep ball, and
well,
I wasn't expecting it to go that quickly.
I mean, other than Mahomes, Allen has probably the strongest arm in the NFL. So at least that I can think of. But yeah, no, I like my team. I'm a little worried this week, but it's all good.
And let's actually go back to the real world in the NFL and talk about the Jets. The Jets now are in absolute chaos. Bradley McDougall, the former Seahawk, talked about their practice habits after their loss to the Niners last week.
I feel so sorry for that guy.
Getting moved from the Seahawks to the Jets.
Yeah, my God, that just sucks.
To continue, he said, we've had some slow practices, and it correlates to the game. We need to have a complete full week of great practices. I don't think we've had that yet. As soon as we realize that and hone in on how important that is, we and come out and win at practice, it will translate to the games on Sunday. That's a bit of a paraphrasing there. Brandon, your thoughts on this comment from Bradley McDougall, and also Avery Williamson questioned it as well.
Well, it's nice of him to think that, but when you have, I believe, 0 first-team wide receivers left on the field, I think they're literally playing third-string wide receivers at this point.
With no Crowder, yeah, pretty much.
What are you gonna do? Like, it's pathetic. I mean, Shane was talking about how the Jaguars are might be tanking for Lawrence. Yeah, right. The only team that has a chance of him is the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going to win a single game this year. They're that bad.
You're not going to win a single game with...
Not a single game. I mean, how do you win a game when you don't have wide receivers?
Yeah, but pretty much their whole core, even Denzel Mims has been hurt as well.
They won't win a single game with the incredible Sam Darnold, who I still think is overrated.
My thought has changed completely on Sam Darnold. He's regressed so much, man. He doesn't look good at all. I don't know what
Well,
to
if
make
you
of Darnold.
if you had looked into my crystal ball, no, I'm kidding. No. I mean, it could be like a Gardner Minshew thing. If he was at a better team, then maybe it would be better. But I mean, I I don't I don't think that's the case because at least Gardner looks competent. I don't know. Darnold just looks like he has no idea what to do. But
And I think it keeps going back to this Adam Gase hire. I mean, once Adam Gase came into the fold, look at what Le'Veon Bell has said. Look at what a bunch of members of the team have said about how they've practiced, how they're utilizing their star players. Adam Gase seems to be the ultimate problem here, don't you guys think?
well, yeah, but I mean, look at the coaching market. Like, who are you gonna get? I mean, there's Urban Meyer. He's not gonna go there. I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you do? You know what I mean? All the good coaches are taken.
Now I know hindsight is 2020, but let's keep this in mind. Mike McCarthy took a year off last year. He wanted the Jets
Mhm.
job last year.
He did want it.
He wanted the Jets job last year. He was going to take the Jets job. That was the only job that really interested him last year. Hindsight's
Yeah, that
always
would have been a good
2020,
fit.
but Mike McCarthy on the Jets would have made more sense than Adam Gase. At least they would have practiced a lot better.
Or Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys. Yeah.
Brandon, your thoughts on Adam Gase and how he's coaching this team?
Uh, I believe I said a while back that look. I don't believe I don't know if I would blame it on Adam Gase because let's be honest here. The Jets are just like a black hole that sucks any level of success into it and then spits it out. When you are a team like the Jets, when you're a team that's bad, nobody good is going to want to come to your team. Frankly, it's a little like think about the Seahawks. Like we went through after we got lucky. Like after oh god. Who I'm blanking my name on his name. Not Carroll, but the guy we had.
We got Mora, right? Mora before.
Mora, but the guy we had before Mora.
I don't remember because we had Holmgren and then we went to
yes,
Mora
Holmgren.
after.
Holmgren. We got lucky that between Holmgren and Carroll, we only had 1 year of a crappy coach.
I think it was 2 with Mora, but either way.
No,
yeah.
Mora was only 1 year. And usually you have teams that just go weeks, or not weeks, years with bad coaches. The Seahawks managed to snag Pete Carroll coming off of success in college, mostly probably because people didn't really think that someone who had success in college would have success in the pros.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. It does seem like Adam Gase doesn't exactly know how to run a football team, though.
He's a good offensive coach. I mean, the reason he got hired there was because of helping Darnold, but it's not all about the quarterback when you're looking at the coaching with that coaching job. And now moving on to the 10 o'clock games. Shane, what is a 10 o'clock game you're looking forward to?
Well, in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to the Niners Giants just to see if the injury slaughter continues.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
No, I know, but
that's
like
dark.
No, just because they were saying, oh, it's the field, so it's like if that really is the case and all these injuries continue, it'd be like, well, that's kind of sketchy, but yeah. Anyways, um, I digress. In all seriousness, Rams Bills will be great, I think, because these are two undefeated teams, and they, they're both like the Rams. I was not expecting them to look as good as they do, and I think Sean McVay is kind of reminding us, me in particular, that yeah, I'm still a good coach. I'm still here. I'm gonna make my impact. It's like, okay, I got it. And they've looked great defensively, and Bills, whose defense I thought was like number one in the NFL, has looked kind of, they're okay, but not wowing me.
They've had an injury bug. They've lost a few players
Yeah.
to injury over the last couple of weeks on their defense. So
Right.
it's a bit depleted.
And so I just, I want to see how they do against Sean McVay in this, very creative, unpredictable offense, and also how the Rams defense can do against Buffalo's crazy pass offense. I want to see if they can put pressure on Allen and force him to make some bad throws or this and that, which it's entirely possible. Bengals Eagles is also interesting. They're both 0-2, but I want to see if Cincinnati's come close to winning both of their games, and I think this will be a real showing of, is Philly actually bad, or are they just in kind of a weird funk?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll just be interesting to see who comes out on top there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Oh, and Raiders Patriots, that should be
Yeah.
fun too.
Yeah. There's a couple great matchups here as well. Titans, Vikings, and
Yeah.
Bears, Falcons after the Falcons collapse. Brandon, I'll give you the floor with the 125 games. I know you're looking at one in particular, as everyone is nationally, the Cowboys and the Seahawks. I'll start with you with that preview.
Yeah. I look at the Cowboys and the Seahawks game, and I'm really tempted to say, like, I don't feel like the Cowboys are going to have much of a chance,
You
like,
homer.
okay, fine, Mike, you say I'm a homer,
No, I'm
but
kidding.
think about
Dude,
it
that was
this
a
way, like,
joke.
well, yeah, I mean, I know it's a joke, but like, if you look at it this way, the Cowboys had to bring their ass back against the Falcons, and the Seahawks smacked that ass against the Falcons. Like, we kicked their ass so hard they flew away to their bird nest and cried.
I think yeah.
That's a little too aggressive. That's a little too much.
I mean,
man, that's too much.
Look, it is not too much. They did fly away to their bird nest and cry. Like, look.
Too much.
Whatever, Robert.
Too much.
They are the opposition, damn it. The Cowboys, people talk about how the Seahawks are like, they give up all these passing yards, yada, yada, yada. Well, we may give up passing yards, but we haven't given up that many passing touchdowns. And if the Cowboys want to throw the ball, sure, go ahead, throw the ball. Like, you might get a bunch of yards, but, I mean, the Seahawks continue to have bend, don't break defense. And I'm sure Jamal Adams is licking his chops to get a couple sacks after last week where he missed on a couple. And our Seahawks offense has continued to show that they can take out anybody who comes their way in their first two games. So I think it'll be a good game. I'll be watching it on mute or on Red Zone because of the commentary team, who I shall not name.
I'm good with Joe and Troy, man. I'm
I
good with
signed a
those two.
petition to ban them from TV.
Homers.
I like Joe and Troy a lot.
They are.
But
You already know my opinion on them, but
yeah, no, I think
yeah.
I think Dallas will have some success in their pass game, but that's about it. I think Zeke will be shut down, and I think defensively they'll just be all over the place, kind of a mess. So, yeah. Another game that I am really looking forward to is Packers Saints.
Yeah, the Sunday nighter.
Because 2 weeks ago, I would have told you that New Orleans was going to just blow them away. But now, I've kind of done a full 180 on that. And, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Packers are gonna take them to the slaughterhouse. And yeah.
I don't know about that. Like,
I don't think so, man.
Breeze might. I feel like Breeze is gonna be like, look, this ain't how we roll.
It'll be a high-scoring game, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the question is, do the Saints have? Do they have Michael Thomas back?
No, he's out. He's out.
Oh, he's out.
That'll be a big difference.
At least from the reports I've seen, he's out.
Yeah.
And he was listed as questionable.
Yeah, I think he's. I think they're gonna go on the safe side, and I think more than likely he's out. At least for a couple of weeks. Shane, in terms of Michael Thomas, right? And you look at Drew Brees and his performances the last 2 weeks, especially last week on Monday night. Do you? And there's been a lot of talk on if he can really push the ball down the field. Does he really have that same arm talent? What's been your impression on Drew Brees and his performance without Michael Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just become, it's become very apparent without him that they do rely on him for a lot of their passing production because, you look at this game and, I mean, he barely threw to any receivers. He just threw to was their tight end?
They threw to Jared Cook, but they also threw to Traquan as well, to Traquan Smith.
Right. Won a lot of passes like to Kamara and whatnot, which is weird because it's not like Breeze was being pressured, like he had plenty of time. So I don't know. I think that was either Breeze really is regressing or that was just like a fluke game for him. Judging how he was in the Tampa Bay game, which they did win with 34 points. However, he only threw for like 170 yards. So I don't know. I mean, part of that could be the fact that Kamara is just playing absurdly well, which that could be the case. I don't know. But it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of troubling to me when this guy is, when he is, it feels like he can only throw to one receiver, or like consistently, reliably, and get big production out of it. You know what I mean? So.
And going to the Packers side, Brandon, what have been your thoughts on this Packers offense? I know we've been talking about their offense the past couple of weeks. What have been your thoughts on this offense?
The offense is good, but it seems to take a little bit to get going. I know in the first week they kind of got going pretty quickly. But last week against the Lions, they were down in the first quarter or two. And I'm starting to wonder, like, they're a good offense, but I'm starting to wonder what will happen when they play against teams that have better defenses.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
don't think the Saints are that matchup.
No. The Saints, I mean, they're not bad, but they're not what they were like last year before, you know.
How many flags did the Saints have, especially in the secondary in that game against the Raiders? That was brutal.
Yeah.
And then we'll also cover the Monday Nighter as well, as this is the game of the week, the Chiefs and the Ravens. This is going to be amazing.
This is the one I'm really looking forward to.
This is going to be a classic. This is a must-watch game. Brandon, I'll start with you with Chiefs Ravens.
Yeah, a lot of people are using this as kind of like the benchmark for who's going to be the Super Bowl winner, but I feel like that's a little unfair.
It's too much, yeah.
It's too much. It's kind of unfair because I feel like both of these teams they're like really good, but they're not like super powered versions of the teams that they were last year. I feel like it's a much more open race for the Super Bowl. There's many teams that you could argue could win it, but this game is going to be pretty great. I think personally, I would probably go with the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs are going to bring the offensive firepower, and I think the Ravens are going to bring more of the defensive firepower. So
this could absolutely be a shootout as well. Shane, your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I think it definitely will be a shootout. Because I think that I think these two quarterbacks and their offensive personnel going up against these defenses, it's, you know, you got they're both, you know, as defenses, they're both good, but neither one is, in my opinion, as amazing as they were last year. So, I mean, you know, I could see it. I could see these two guys who are two of the top three quarterbacks in the NFL. I could see them just totally exploiting these defenses. And I think they will. You know, I think regardless, it's going to be a close game, whether it's a defensive game or it's an offensive blowout. You know, I mean, it could go either way. You're just looking at you know, how the Chiefs did last week. Mahomes, you know, he didn't have his most amazing game up until the end there. I was about to sneeze, sorry.
Okay.
And, you know, so part of that is also because, you know, I think because the Chiefs defense was planning for Tyrod Taylor, and then they got Justin Herbert, and so then they had to adjust at halftime, and then they looked great. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we kind of know you know, they kind of know what they're getting now with Baltimore and vice versa. Baltimore with Kansas City. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot more preparation for this, especially since it's a longer week for them. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. And we're going to move also to some college football news. The Pac-12 will play a 7-game conference schedule beginning on November 6th. Brandon, I'll start with you with the Pac-12 playing a 7-game schedule. All Power 5 are going to start playing here in earnest.
like I'm not that excited really. Like it just doesn't feel appropriate. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I get it. There's like testing and everything, but like 7 games, great. Like what are you going to do? 7 games.
Point?
What's the point? Also, the
Yeah.
fact that it doesn't really matter what your record is to get into to play for the championship for the Pac-12. Like, also doesn't matter what your record is to be able to be at a bowl game. Like,
you can be under 500.
So you can literally be 0-7 and play in a bowl game. Like,
Wait, really?
Yes.
Well, I don't think 0-7 might be a bit of a stretch, but you could have 3 to 4 wins and make it bowl game.
It's like this is
Wow.
this is the laughability that comes out of the Pac-12. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's probably for all of college football, the fact that you can be under 500 and make a bowl game. Shane, I'll go with you with this as well, and you can mention about the Pac-12 playing also, but I did want to get your opinion on the college football playoff, right? And how the committee is going to handle this, because I'm worried that there could be 3 SEC teams and Clemson in the playoff. It seems like the playoff could be really janky, and you and I both have had our reservations about this committee, and now with this perspective on how the committee is going to handle this situation, I'm worried it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, this isn't really this is not really a secret if you know me, but I think quite frankly, I think college football is kind of a joke at the moment. Uh, and the playoff is no different. In the several years it's existed, I've never once cared for it. I just think it's kind of I don't think that I never feel like the true proper teams are exactly chosen. And it's only 4 teams, so who cares? What's the point? Just have the national title game and be done with it. But oh no, we got to make more money because NCAA, we're a bunch of corporate greedy.
Well, hang on a sec. With that point, really quick, the BCS was a terrible format. Regardless of how the committee does their job, like we needed a playoff. We can't just have 2 teams and a national title. We were clamoring for this for years.
Yeah, I know. So like that's the thing. Like if you're gonna do it, like make it 8 teams or 16 teams or something. Don't just make it 4 teams. It's like, what's the point? Like who cares? I don't know. It's just weird to me. But yeah, there very well could be 3 SEC teams. Unless they put in some rules saying that you can't do that or whatever. I don't know. Because the current standing or the current ranking was it Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida? Is that right? Or
yeah, Florida's number 5.
okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean that's
It is currently Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Notre Dame, Texas, Auburn, Texas A&M.
Oh,
okay.
So I forgot about Oklahoma as well.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, wow, look at that. Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia are in the top 4. God, what are the odds of that happening?
Also, I love the fact that Alabama, who hasn't even played a game, is number 2 somehow.
Because it's Alabama, and we know what Alabama is.
Yeah. And they even got a vote to be moved up to number 1, apparently.
That's ridiculous. I mean, like,
I don't know. I mean, in my personal opinion, I already feel like the playoff is just stupid, and this year, is that could not be more of the case.
yeah.
With the shortened season and only so many schools playing and conferences all playing at different times and yada 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 yada. The NCAA itself needs to just take more initiative. They're just sitting back and letting them do whatever they want, and it's so dumb. I mean, my dog could be a better president of the NCAA. Like, come on, this is. I mean, I don't know. I'm just honestly. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't really care about college football until they fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I have named those things a lot of times or many times. grammar.
You can go back in our show catalog and you can see
Yeah,
all
you
of
can
it.
go back to all my rants about why college football sucks, and then sprinkled in there, you might find something about how Joe Flacco is the greatest quarterback of all time. But
You brought it in here. You said you were going to, and you did it.
yeah,
He is the
But
Jets'
anyways.
backup quarterback. He's out for a couple more weeks, but he is their
Yeah.
backup quarterback.
Yeah, he should. I don't know why I didn't say that earlier, because he should be starting for the Jets, because
In
according to
two
everybody,
weeks, he should start for the Jets.
because
Yeah.
according to everybody, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. So, yeah, after he won that Super Bowl, I mean, he himself had a subpar season, but after the Rams won that Super Bowl, everyone's like, "Oh, Joe Flacco's a
Ravens.
franchise quarterback. He's the best thing since sliced freaking bread."
Oh my god!
Yeah.
By the way, if you don't notice, this is satire. I think Joe Flacco is the most overrated quarterback in NFL history, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a full 20 minutes of Joe
Him
Flacco
and Tom
comment.
Brady, but
Brady's the greatest of all time, but either way,
Oh my god.
it's facts though, man. It's facts.
It's not facts.
It's
It's
debatable.
Statistically, those facts are not facts.
6 rings.
Statistically,
Brennan
he
does
is
not
not the
agree.
greatest of all time.
All right, let's
Like-
move on before we get off the
But
rails
anyway.
here. We have 2 3-1 leads in the NBA conference finals, both in the Eastern and Western Conference. Brandon, which of these 2 teams has a shot to come back from 3-1, Boston or Denver?
Denver.
I mean, we've seen it twice. Do you think it could happen for a third time?
Boston has no chance at all.
You don't think Boston has a shot to, let's say, win one more game here?
No.
Well, maybe one
The-
more, but
The Heat are going to be like, nah, get out of here, Boston. This is our time to shine. The Nuggets, yeah, I think the Nuggets are they have a chance. I think they're going to bring it back. Yeah, AD is playing great. But man, LeBron James
Game 2.
is starting to. Whew,
What are your concerns with LeBron here so far?
he doesn't. He's starting to look like not the LeBron of old. And by that I mean he's not quite. I don't know, man. It's like there's everybody's like acting as if LeBron is like still this OP player, which like he's quite good, but he's not like God tier LeBron anymore.
He's not prime LeBron, but I think one of the key pieces with LeBron right now, I mean, that game last night was pretty weird because the Nuggets got in foul trouble. And they got to the line a lot. But I think one of the interesting things with LeBron, and I keep going back to Rondo, playoff Rondo, right? And him taking out some of the playmaking that LeBron does, giving him some help on the floor where he doesn't have to do everything, at his age. Yeah, I still think he's a top 5 player in the league. You can obviously put guys like Giannis above him. I pretty much have Giannis above him in terms of just pure talent. But I think LeBron just needs to take a little bit more off the plate. And Rondo, I think, in specific, has done that, and definitely AD has as well. Shane, what are your thoughts on LeBron right now?
First of all, I just wanted to share this with you.
Oh,
This is
God.
a SpongeBob meme about the Denver Nuggets.
Whoever did that meme credit, but yeah.
Anyways, yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Brandon. I mean, LeBron, yeah, he's great, obviously, but he's definitely, I think he's definitely letting AD take the reins, because he himself knows, yeah, here's this young guy who's really hot. We're better in his hands, letting him take charge and just go off and do his thing, right? And I think LA. All jokes aside, I do think LA will win this series because of, obviously, it's not prime LeBron, but it's still LeBron. He's still great. AD is just playing out of his mind. Then, like you said, the playoff Rondo, whatever. And I just, Denver came back from 3-1 in two different series, but I think this one's a bit different because the Clippers, like in their series, the Clippers look like they weren't really taking it all that seriously. But I think the Lakers are really in it. They're all in. They're trying to win. So I think it's, the mindset and the mentality of this series is a little bit different, I think. So I do like the Lakers. Although, like we were saying, the 3-1 comeback has happened twice with Denver. Who's to say there won't be a third? I mean, who knows, at the end of the day. We'll just have to see. And then, Miami, I think I think they've really shown Boston's some of their inconsistencies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Brennan has pointed them out in past shows about how a lot of times they just seem to get a bit lucky in certain scenarios. And anyways, the luck of the Irish is weird enough, but I think Miami definitely has this series down pat.
Yeah. To finish off with Boston, that was a really frustrating game to watch. The last game that they played, because Tatum, he got 28 in the second half, but the first half he was abysmal. I mean, he just couldn't get his shot to go down. That game really showed me the true value of Tatum. I always talk about with Boston how they actually have other pieces. They have guys like Kemba who can shoot, Jaylen Brown who can shoot, Marcus Smart as a defensive presence. But it shows you how much they need Tatum to really win games or be close in ball games. Or, to even as far as winning ball games, obviously, Tatum can help keep them close, and guys like Kemba can definitely shoulder some of that load to get the win. But I guess all this to say that Tatum's value is much more than we originally thought, or that I originally thought. I think the last game showed that. And defensively, these are both really not good defensive teams. They're not built to play defense. But I think Miami, with their shots and their three-point game, Tyler Hero was phenomenal career day. He looks like a guy who's going to continue to grow as a player as well. But you look at Miami, and they just have better shots. They have better shot selection. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of why Miami's the better team here so far, and that's why they're up 3-1.
Well, I think they have more. Yeah, I think they have more pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Because Boston has, 3 or 4 guys that are real standouts, but Miami, it's like all 5 of them are really competent, plus a couple of guys on the bench. Like none of them are stars other than like Butler and Bam Adebayo, but they're all do their job quite well. So, yeah.
And let's move on to the MLB playoff bubble. Brandon, do you mind explaining the uniqueness of this bubble and how they are pursuing this for the MLB side?
I mean, the only thing really unique about it is that the AL teams are playing in NL parks and the NL teams are playing in AL parks, which is appropriate because it would be pretty crappy if you had I don't know, Houston playing in their own park
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because they sort of managed to get through the season with only a couple teams suffering from lost games because of COVID. And it appears that they were like, you know what? We can finally use a bubble for the last couple games. I don't know. I feel like players are going to have the same whininess that everybody else has had at first, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And then, this is something that we were talking about a bit throughout the week with the NBA bubble, but this could also be the case with the MLB bubble as well. How the bubble environment changes how the playoffs can actually go. Obviously, with Denver in the NBA side, I don't think if we actually were maybe not in a bubble, they probably maybe wouldn't have been as good. Obviously, who's to say? But do you think with the MLB there could be some of that where some of these teams that you wouldn't expect to dominate, find a way to dominate in this unique bubble format?
Well, yeah, already you have teams like Miami, who's I doubt they would have been possibly finding a way in. It's interesting because you have teams like the Reds, teams like so currently the teams that are in the playoff race are Dodgers, Atlanta, Chicago, San Diego, St. Louis, Miami, Cincinnati, and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Teams that normally don't make it in are, hell, you have St. Louis, Miami, Cincinnati, and San Francisco all did not make the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, it's a 16 team schedule
Right.
as well.
And it's also like one of those things where when you have eight teams, it feels like less of an accomplishment,
Mm-hmm.
but because it's also a shorter season. And then in the American League, you have like Toronto, Astros. Well, actually, Astros aren't locked in. They could still get knocked out by the Angels, apparently.
It's not likely, but they could.
Right. So basically, it's looking like it's gonna be like Astros, Twins, Cubs. Well, not Cubs, but
No,
you
not
get
Cubs.
my point. You get my point. You're
White
seeing,
Sox.
White Sox. You're seeing random teams making it in, kind of. And you have the Astros all the way down at the bottom. Currently, the AL matchup are Blue Jays, Rays, Indians, Twins, Astros, A's, and Yankees versus White Sox. And what's bizarre is you have teams that usually are at the top of the rankings, like the Yankees and the Astros, are the 5 and 6 team, and you have the 1, 2, 3, and 4 teams are the Rays, the Twins, the A's, and the White Sox.
That is much different.
Last year, White Sox were not in so it's interesting because the only team in the AL matchup that was not in last year was the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Blue Jays were also not in last year. Mm-hmm. It shows just how consistent the American League is, and how many teams are on the rise. But you also have to ask the question, if this was a longer season, would the Astros have even made it in? Because you had teams like the Angels and the Mariners who were just hitting their stride at the 60 game mark,
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a full season, I doubt Houston would have hung in there. Because after about the first month, they really took a dive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't. They're playing the A's, right, in the first,
Yeah.
or they're projected to.
In a
Yeah, I don't.
3-game series.
Yeah, I don't think that would go well for Houston.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we'll see.
Yep. It should be really interesting as well with the bubble format. We got a best of 3 for the wild card, a best of 5 for the division series, and a best of 7, of course, for the championship series and the World Series. The championship series and the World Series might have about 22% capacity of fans as well. So it should be really interesting.
That's fun.
And then we're actually going to finish off with the Stanley Cup Final and the UFC. Brandon, in terms of the Stanley Cup Final, obviously we talked about this being a really strange matchup with the Stars and the Lightning, but a really interesting development happened in the last game with Steven Stamkos coming back for the Lightning. He is out for the next game, but what is Stamkos' impact for the Lightning that kind of changes this series in your mind?
Stamkos is like a really just all-around big player for the Lightning. He's had an impact on their team the last couple times that they've made a run. He's the most beloved player arguably in the Lightning franchise. If he comes back, he could single-handedly take out the Dallas Stars, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's that good of a player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and with Stamkos, I think you bring up a good point. I mean, we saw it last game. I think, he'll be out game 4. Hopefully he'll be back game 5. But I think you're right. I think the Lightning have this if Stamkos is at least even 80% moving forward. But we'll see. He'll be out next game. But maybe game 5 or game 6 if this series does go long, which it does have a potential to if Stamkos does miss some more extended time as well. And then finally, we have a big UFC card this weekend. Adesanya against Paulo Costa. I absolutely love Israel Adesanya. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this main event?
It's kind of interesting because it's two guys I wouldn't have thought of being put in the main event, but I'm kind of happy about it. It's back on Fight Island, so that's gonna be fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm honestly more interested in the co-main with Dominic Reyes
and Jan Blachowicz. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a super stacked card.
There's definitely some names. Like I like Kaikara
Right, there's
France.
There's names like Israel and Kaikara and Dominic Reyes, but
and we got Saijara Eubanks as well.
But it's like it's not like the big name fight.
Yeah.
It seems like they've kind of like balanced out their fights, their main cards a little bit for the future.
Yeah, for the remainder of the year for sure.
You have like Israel versus Paulo, and then Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz, and then on October 3rd you have Holly Holmes fighting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they have their two big names fights, and then for the rest of the year, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, they're longer cards, but they're just not as until we get to October 24th, where we're gonna have Khabib versus Justin Gaethje.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting point to bring up when you're talking about the UFC, because obviously with the pandemic, they kind of had to stack a bunch of these cards in terms of stacking stacking these pay-per-views, and now they've kind of gone back to, we're not going to stack them as much, which I don't really like. I like when the pay-per-views have more. I mean, names are fun, of course, but I think, stacking the pay-per-view is always better because I think that's when, everyone's watching, are these pay-per-views.
Yeah.
As for these particular matchups, I love Reyes and Bonkovic as well. I think that's going to be pretty even, but I'll give it to Reyes. In terms of Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa, I love Israel. With DC retiring, Israel Adesanya is definitely my new favorite fighter. This guy, I mean, he had an absolute rise last year. I love his speed, right? Paulo Costa talked about this in a really weird way, which I've still found really bizarre. But in terms of him speaking actually about his speed, I think that's kind of what sets this matchup apart for me. Adesanya is very much a guy who wants you to kind of take shots at him so he can move around and do some kicks and potentially go to the ground. But I see Israel taking this. I think it's going to be a 5-round fight. I see Adesanya winning by unanimous decision, though. I think the speed is definitely the key in this matchup.
Yeah.
In terms of Kai Kara France, I believe he's with I forgot exactly. I believe he's with Francis Ngannou's team, actually. He is an absolutely fun prospect in this flyweight division. Flyweight division, not full of interesting talent, but when you're talking about Kai Kara France, you're talking about a true prospect. We saw a bit of him last year, saw his potential. You're going to see it again against Brandon Royval. I think it's a great matchup for that reason. And then Sijara Eubanks is always ridiculously fun to watch as well. So that's kind of your main card. Him and
These people have the weirdest names.
Yeah.
I mean, all over the world pretty much for the UFC. So
No, I know. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We go from football where everybody has in basketball where everyone has such generic names, and then you get all these, and it's like, whoa.
All right, and that will do it for this week. We'll let you guys know in advance of how we're doing the post show coming up in the next couple of days. But thank you, Shane. Thank you, Brandon. Great show as always, and we will see you all later on this week or this weekend, pretty much.
Or maybe Monday.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do Monday. Are you both good for Monday night? I think we're gonna do Monday night after Chiefs Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna switch to Monday night just for this week. The matchup is pretty big, so it's gonna be a ridiculously fun weekend of football. We got fights and we got basketball and hockey. So really a full slate of fun stuff this weekend. And we will see you all on Monday then.
Yep.
All right. See ya.